with the amount of content you get from doing these, plus all the stimulating questions you get, will you continue doing the occasional old-school style PFTPM? We're still trying to figure out what we're going to do about PFTPM going forward. PFT Live, 2 hours in the morning, fine. It's challenging, to say the least, every day to shut down at 9 a.m. Eastern and to know that at 5 p.m. Eastern I got to be back on for an hour. There may be better ways to utilize that time. Maybe we will do PFT OT as needed based upon the developments of a given day in lieu of jumping in and doing PFTPM on a consistent basis. And it's kind of those, you know it when you see it. Like on a day when a coach gets fired in the middle of the afternoon. And I remember there was a day on PFTPM a couple of years ago. Bill O'Brien gets fired on a Monday minutes before we go on air for PFTPM. That gave us something to talk about. Some days, there really isn't much to talk about that's happened from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And again, you know it when you see it. And that may be the alternative. So it may, I don't know. We're trying to figure it out. It may just be me, as needed, 1, 2, 3 times a week in the afternoon based upon the developments of a given day. We'll see how it plays out. Neil watches PFT. How long will it take to get you back into the swing of the PFT Live schedule? Is it like riding a bike? It is. And it's good that we're doing PFT OT from the old position here today. It won't be as jarring on Monday when I show up at about 90 seconds or so to air and sit down and see Chris, and he gives me the finger, and I give him the finger, and off we go. Yeah, it's just going to be off we go. And it'll be exciting that first day. Those 2 hours will fly by because I missed it. I missed it the first Monday. I keep getting, and I appreciate it. I'm not complaining. I appreciate getting flooded with emails from all the people saying, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? And I don't know how many times I have to say July 25, July 25, July 25. But I appreciate it. I appreciate the interest in the program. And 5 weeks is too long to be off. We're going to try to do something about that for next year. Trust me on that. 5 weeks, if I have anything to say about it, it's not happening next year. 5 weeks is too long to shut down for the sport that never sleeps. I just got a boo from the control room. Sorry, but that's just the way it is. The audience demands more content. PFTPM Posse. Why did the Chiefs trade for Orlando Brown and not give him a long-term deal? Well, they tried. They tried to give him a long-term deal. The question is, why didn't he take the long-term deal? And we've said this before. The standard protocol for calculating a long-term offer based upon a franchise tag is you take this year's salary, you multiply it by 1.2, 20% raise for next year, slap it together, fully guarantee it, and then work out the other terms. And that should usually turn a franchise tag into a long-term deal. I don't know enough about the nooks and crannies of what the Chiefs offered Orlando Brown, but ultimately he wasn't willing to trade his opportunity to go year to year, this year, next year, and then free agency after the 2023 season. He wasn't willing to trade that for whatever the Chiefs were willing to offer. That's how Dak Prescott got his gigantic contract last year. He was 1 year away from the Kirk Cousins, I'm walking out the door. So what Cowboys do you have to give me, Dak Prescott, to get me to trade in my opportunity to make, it was like $37 million for 1 year, and then walk away in free agency? What are you going to give me to get me to give that up? And he leveraged that into a great deal, an awesome deal. 4 years, $160 million, and they're going to be back at the table sooner rather than later with Dak Prescott, the way that deal is structured. So unless that's where the pendulum swings to the player. Look, the franchise tag is bad for players because it keeps them off of the open market. However, the player, once the tag is applied, once the team initiates that process, that's when the player can say, hey, all right, fine, let's do this. I got 2 years before I can become an unrestricted free agent because you're not going to tag me a third time. So I'm not giving up my year-to-year rights unless you make it worth my while. And the Chiefs, in the assessment of Orlando Brown, did not make it worth his while. Neil watches PFT. Texans training camp opens Friday, July 29. Do you think a Jimmy G deal happens before then? I still think he's going to end up with the Texans. I don't think it happens by then, but that's just my guess is he's going to end up there. Neil watches PFT. Do Madden ratings matter at all? Here's how they matter. They matter because players get motivated by all sorts of things, internally and externally. And a lot of players play Madden. And players are always looking for some sign of disrespect. And there's nothing more disrespectful than ending up well below your peers in the Madden ratings when you believe you are better than how you've been rated. Chase Claypool, best example. He recently said he knows he's a top 3 receiver in the NFL. He got a 78 for Madden. He's way, 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 way down the list. He's behind some guys that he's clearly better than. So whatever it takes to supply that extra kick, to do the stuff that we don't see, watching your diet, avoiding the ice cream, getting up and getting your ass out of bed and getting a workout in on a day when you just don't feel like it. I'll do it tomorrow. Or when you're in the middle of the workout, not pushing yourself to the limit. I'll push myself to the limit tomorrow. Those are the tiny little building blocks that lead to long-term success. So that's where the motivation comes into play. It's not, I'm going to try harder when I'm playing. No, it's I'm going to work harder and I'm going to do everything I need to do and I'm going to be fully committed to all the stuff behind the scenes, the drudgery, the monotony. I'm going to kick ass on all the stuff I'd rather not do in the hopes of leading to an end result where I end up performing a lot better than otherwise would. That's why it's important, and that's why we pay attention. Now, we've only written one item about it this year, about the receivers. I've seen other ratings come out, and like TJ Watt not being a 99 when Myles Garrett is. But it hasn't risen to the level where I've decided to do anything about it. Mainly, we're looking for reactions from players at this point to their ratings. Because, again, that's the manifestation of what I'm talking about here. That extra kick, that extra thing that is going to drive a player to not take it easy, to be fully driven, fully motivated, fully engaged in everything he needs to do to be the best he can be. Oh, let's see what else we have here. Here's a tweet that is pasted from March 20. Derek Carr said, since some of y'all are sensitive, I will remind you that I only want people who encourage, speak life into me, and uplift me to have a voice in my life. So if you're blocked, you probably acted like a clown for clout. I still love you all, but I don't have time for your negativity. Somebody responded saying, incoming Florio article, and Derek Carr replied by saying, ha ha ha, facts. I love him too, though. He still has me blocked. And I don't know what I guess I do know what I've ever said about Derek Carr. Look, there's different ways that you can cover this sport or any sport or cover anything. I love the NFL. I love pro football. I have since I was a little kid. I wouldn't be giving my life to it the way that I have every waking moment, even during the 5-week vacation. I'm treading very close to the line here, a line that I don't want to cross. I don't like it when people tell me how busy they are. The work product speaks for itself. That said, I love the NFL. I love pro football. But I also don't like bullshit. And one of the skills I've developed over the years is the ability to spot and the willingness to call out the bullshit that permeates this sport. And there's plenty of it. So some people don't like it when their BS gets called out. And that's okay. I can live with that. Trust me, I've been doing this for 21 years. I can live with people being upset with me. I can live with people blocking me or unfollowing me on Twitter. That is not how I measure my own personal satisfaction with what I've been able to do and what I plan to keep doing. Let's see what else we have here. On that point, Austrian Panther, interesting question. Long-term successful businesses innovate and change constantly. What changes can we expect from PFT next season? I continue to follow the basic guiding light of I talk about and write about the things that I would be interested in as a fan. And I think what happens sometimes is businesses outsmart themselves by feeling like they need to do something more or something different than just serve their customers. And I try by constantly keeping that fan in me engaged with the game. I try to spot things that I am subjectively interested in and I write about those things, trusting that the people out there who are consuming the content, whether it's in written form or video form, will respond and be interested in it as well. There are too many people in the media who try to force feed to the audience things they think the audience should be interested in. I'd rather focus on the things that I believe the audience is interested in. And that doesn't mean clickbait. And there's so much clickbait crap out there now, which is obvious, just click harvest lists, and I don't want to name names or go down that, but it's exhausting at times to sift through the actual news versus the made-up crap that is just there to lure someone in. They click on it and then they say, oh, this is nothing, and they click out, but the click counted. Anyway, my point is we constantly are driven by giving the audience what we think the audience is truly interested in, and that process is a daily, constant, ongoing thing. So to the extent that we innovate and change, I mean, there isn't much more we can do. You see a lot more video content on the site than you used to see. Would I like to have our own app? I would. Be candid about that. Maybe we will one of these days. Maybe there's going to be an occasion coming up in the not-too-distant future where there's all sorts of things that we can ask for and try to get in order to improve the total experience. We'll see how that plays out. Let's see what else we have here. There was one I saw earlier. Here it is. I like this one. Wait. No, it's not that one. Here we go. Hang on. Here it is. From Marco. How can the NFL say they investigated the Watson situation and present 4 or 5 cases when a publication like the New York Times found 66? When the Texans had to settle with 30 women all related to the Watson situation and 10 criminal cases the police detective believed he was guilty of. And this is one of the big flaws in the NFL's effort to create its own justice system. Now, we know that the NFL spoke ultimately to 12 of the women with accusations against Deshaun Watson. There were 24 lawsuits that were filed against him. The Texans settlement, 30, suggests that there are 6 others out there that either will sue Deshaun Watson or, we won't know this if it happened, settled pre-suit any claims with Deshaun Watson. That's possible as well. But we know there's 30. We know that 24 sued. The NFL spoke to 12. And at the end of the day, the NFL presented 4 accusers at the hearing. Now, the 5th, I'm told, was based upon a media report. That's not evidence. You try to go to court by, in lieu of calling a witness, handing the judge a newspaper and saying, read the article above the fold, that's not evidence. No matter how well the article is written, no matter how properly sourced and vetted the story is, that is not evidence in a judicial or quasi-judicial proceeding, which this clearly is. So, the NFL had 4 accusers. The NFL had a 5th that they tried to jam in through a media report. That was disregarded, that's my understanding, by Judge Robinson. So you got 4. So how do you get from 24 to 4? Here's the problem. I knew I'd eventually get back around to the point. The NFL has no subpoena power. We've talked a lot about subpoenas recently as it relates to Dan Snyder and his yacht. The NFL doesn't have the power to issue a subpoena to anyone who doesn't work for the league. The NFL can't force anyone who isn't employed by one of the teams or the league office to show up and cooperate. Ezekiel Elliott, 6 years ago. One of the reasons he got suspended 6 games, even though he was never arrested, charged, or sued, is that the ex-girlfriend who made the allegations against him was willing to continuously speak to the NFL. I think there were 6 interviews at the end of the day between the NFL and the individual who made the accusation. She didn't have to talk to the NFL. She chose to. So, 24. How did we get down to 12? It's entirely possible. And the NFL is not going to take out a billboard to tell this to the world because they don't want to expose the biggest flaw in their effort to engage in this rough justice that they try to craft as a PR tool. It could be that 12 of them said we're not cooperating. And it could be that 8 of the 12 that did talk to the NFL said we're not showing up for the hearing. We don't like the questions you asked us. Remember, there was a report. It wasn't a report. It was quotes from Tony Busby a year or so ago complaining about, on behalf of the women who were interviewed, the way that they were treated, the questions they were asked. They didn't think they were sufficiently respected. So you just tap out. I'll get my justice in court. I'm not engaging in your kangaroo court. I'm not required to. You can't make me. It doesn't affect my rights. So that's the problem here. So, look, the appearance that I think it creates is the NFL ultimately believed that there were only 4 valid cases. It's entirely possible that the NFL wanted to put all 24 in front of Judge Robinson, but 20 of them said, go to hell. We're not doing it. And if they say that, there's nothing the NFL can do to make them. Again, that is the biggest problem when it comes to the NFL's power or lack thereof to properly investigate and prosecute players who are accused of off-duty misconduct. Let's go ahead and stop it there. If I didn't get to your question today, resubmit it for tomorrow. That'll give me reason to go 5 for 5 in the 5th and final week of the PFT Live hiatus. The final 5-week hiatus, if I can help it, that PFT Live will ever have. I plan to come back with one more PFT OT, and then on Monday, we'll be back with PFT Live. Sims will be involved. I'll be here. We'll be everywhere that the show goes, and before you know it, we'll be up and running, and we'll be with you continuously every day, no days off, except when I have an impending intestinal requirement 5 minutes into a show. Other than that, no days off, or other than like whenever the holidays land and we take a day off or two. But other than that, no days off until the next hiatus next year. Thanks as always for some of your time. Check us out around the clock at ProFootballTalk.com. We will see you back here hopefully again tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.